Hello, hello, hello. It is Tuesday. I am really excited. This is one of my favorite times of the week. And of course, this one is going to be really special because it's my birthday week. So, some of you may know it was my birthday yesterday. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation. I didn't know, I was like really falling behind this week with so much going on, and so I wasn't really sure exactly what I was going to talk about. So today I'm going to talk about this idea of death and rebirth and what that looks like, what that means, and why it's so important. And I think, given the fact that it's my birthday, um, and for me, I've been experiencing this death of myself over the last, uh, I want to say, I want to say probably a decade, but really, like that last piece was like over the last year. And really what that looks like, what I just really want to dive into this topic. And so if any of you have any questions, I would really love for this one to be very interactive, because yeah, this one's going to be a deep concept. So I'm looking forward to this one. um, didn't really have, like I said, I was kind of a little busy, so I didn't really have this one planned. So I'm really excited to see what divine intervention comes in today about this topic. I'm really excited. So, again, before we get started, I just want to welcome everybody on the call. Thank you so much for investing your time and your energy into being here with me today. Um, you have no idea how much I appreciate that. Um, we always have people from all over the world joining us, which is really super exciting. And yeah, thank you for spending my birthday with me. This is really, really great. I got these birthday gifts from last year, so I figured I'll pull them out of the archives and represent my friends from my travels across the world today. So uh, my yeah, so I'm really excited to just have that piece with me today. So let's dive into this. What is this? So over the last decade, um, um, over the last decade, my journey had started from my journey into my like spiritual growth started from an experience of being in a very, very dark place, of being in a place where I really was contemplating a suicide. And I was in a situation in my life where I didn't know how to get out. I really honestly did not know how to get out of the situation that I was in. And I felt super powerless in where I was at in my life. And I needed to, I just felt like the only way I was going to be able to overcome, the only way I was going to be able to get my power back was to take my own life. I was in a very, very abusive relationship, and I felt like if I was in this relationship much longer, that I was going to end up like that he was going to end up taking my life. And I didn't want him to have I didn't want him to have that control over me. So I was like contemplating how I could take that control back in my life. And from that moment on, I had made that, when I had gone through that period of time where I was contemplating that suicide. When I was younger, I was very, very, very connected spiritually. But then, of course, what usually happens is it gets cut off, right? It gets cut off with society, with family, things like that. And so I cut it off. And so just kind of spent my life just being in very much of a victim mentality. But I was young, but it doesn't matter. I just was not connected, and was not a happy person. Anyways, so 10 years ago, I had this experience where I was at a place where I was wanting to commit suicide. And while I realized that that just couldn't be the answer, I was sitting there at the corner of my bed, just like, oh my gosh, God, why in the world do you hate me so much? Like, why do you hate me? Like, uh, like I'm just like my thought process was that I was God's joke. Like I was put on this planet to just be laughed at by the universe, that I just didn't deserve to have anything. It was just like, what is wrong with me? I'm stuck on this planet that is just a horrible place to live. And in that moment I heard this voice, and I heard it in my right ear, but it came right from my solar plexus area and my gut. And I heard, because you allowed it. And I was like, and it was a loud, like it was a loud, deep male voice. And I was like, what? And it was like, because you allowed it. And in that moment, I closed my eyes. And when I closed my eyes, there was this, I just saw like this flash of like rainbow colors. And I saw everything in my life play back to me in my life over the last 15 years prior to that. But I saw it play back in a different perspective. And then I remember just like coming out of it like this. I was like, oh my gosh, I did allow this. I don't know what happened here, so I apologize for what happened. I don't know if I was cut off or what, but the platform that I'm using shut down. So I'll just pick up where I left off. But basically, it was yeah. I just realized that I allowed it, and so in that moment, I had made a decision that from that moment on, I'm going to take full accountability for my life. And I didn't, obviously, when you say that, you don't quite realize how much you're creating on any given basis in your life. And so for me, I saw I saw I just started seeing my life in a completely different perspective, and my life took a completely different turn. And and I'm a much different person than I was 10 years ago. And I've been through a lot of different journeys. I've lived a lot of lifetimes. Like I always call them in my past life. I'm like, this past life in this lifetime. I have like a lot of like little past lives in this lifetime. And and looking back like throughout the years, like the different photos and the different things, just like how I've just transformed and developed over the years, just so different. And and how I'm just such a different person. It's really beautiful. And then I think one of the reasons why I really wanted to share this topic was because once we've gone through a path of transformation, and some people might want to call it some people may want to call it um, enlightenment or whatever. I like to avoid using that word, but but some people like to use that word, but that's not what I like to use. But you get to a place where you go through this transformation process, and you think that you've reached a place where you are bulletproof. You really do feel like a place like you're bulletproof. I made it to a place where I was living the life that I had always dreamt of living. Like I was living a life that I had always dreamed of. Like it was my ultimate goal in life, and I achieved it. Like I absolutely achieved it. Traveling the world, having freedom, finally being in a relationship that I thought that was really serving me. I thought that I was making really good money. I was doing what I loved doing. I was serving. I was really connected to myself. I really felt like I was in my power. And then I started to see how, um, once I started going on my world travels, right before I went, I'm going to back up. Right before I went on my world travels, I had realized I felt like I kind of had hit a plateau in my life, just like a little plateau in my life. And I was like, okay, what is this? Like, is this really it? Because this was all I had planned for. Like I'd wanted to be a speaker. I was traveling. I was getting hired to speak. Um, I just had it. And then I realized I was like, no, it's time to go bigger. It was time for me to make a more global impact on the world. And so I said, but in order to go global, I know that I have some glasses that I need to take off. I need to strip myself of myself. And so I realized for me, I was like, in order to make an impact on a global scale, I wanted to see the world as a global citizen rather than just an American citizen. So I made that decision. Um, this was right before I was planning on moving to California, but then I'd gone on a trip to Mexico, and while I was on this trip in Mexico, I was like looking around. I was like, no, I think it's time to travel the world. That was my all-time dream, to just be a nomad for a couple of years and travel the world. So, anyways, one day I made the decision it's time to go global. And I was running on a treadmill one day. And while I was on the treadmill, I heard a voice, and the voice said, move to Belize. And I was like, move to Belize? Why Belize? And it was just like, move to Belize. And I was like, okay, well, that's weird, whatever. So I went home after the gym. I went home and I got a big poster board, piece of paper, and I just wrote down on the first list. I said, move to Belize by September 1st. And I just threw it up in the air and I said, okay, God, if this is you need to let me know what I need to do to make this happen. And it was really funny because I put that as like my first goal. And then my second goal was to buy a Tesla, because that was my goal that year, was to buy a Tesla. I already test drove it. I already picked it out. I was just determining what color I wanted. Like that was like the biggest stress in my life. Like what color Tesla that I wanted. I was like, what color Tesla did I want? That was my stress in life. And so I couldn't decide. So I was like, that was my second goal. But it was funny because the two goals like weren't really obviously move out of the country and buy a Tesla. What am I going to do with the Tesla? So anyways, but writing that goal down, moved to Belize because I was listening to that higher voice. Everything that I needed to move out of the country just happened. Like I really honestly money just started flowing into my account. Um, ever that like all these things that I needed to let go of, like all these things just started happening and it was freaking me out kind of at first because I was like, oh my God, like everything's happening. And then I realized like this was real, like this was really what I was supposed to do. And so when I started to really feel into why it was that I needed to move into or move out of the country, um, I was like, it's time to prepare myself for global leadership. It's time. You're ready. It's time. So then, as things were moving, my boyfriend at the time was kind of freaking out, and so I just sat there on the couch and I looked at him and I said, "Look, I'm doing this with or without you. You're either coming with me or you're staying here, but I have to follow this calling." And so he got on board and we decided to go move out of the country. And it was funny looking back at it because I don't know why in my head I thought that this was going to be a vacation. And believe me, it was not a vacation. As soon as we left the country, it was like a complete stripping. It was a complete stripping. We show up at our Airbnb in Belize, and I was like, it was hell. It was so hot. It was so humid. There was no air conditioning. It was like total, just like third world conditions. Mosquitoes everywhere. I had 68 mosquito bites on my body. Yes, I counted every single one. The first day I was there, I was absolutely miserable. And I remember looking at my boyfriend. I said, "Do not unpack these bags." And I didn't even know I knew world geography the way I knew world geography because every country in the world was like flooding through my brain. And I was like, okay, we can move here and 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 here. And I'm out of here. Like I'm out of here. But then I had made of the mistake of buying all of our plane tickets and stuff in advance because that's how you're supposed to travel, buying all your stuff in advance. And so if I would have left, I would have had to forfeit like all these plane tickets that I had bought over the last 6 months. And so I would have lost a lot of money. So I'm like, oh my gosh, we're here. We're here in Belize. And so we're just gonna have to be here. Why do I share that? Everything that I was trying to do while I was in Belize wasn't working. And I kept on forgetting about my initial intent was to prepare myself to be a global leader. Of course, I didn't know what any of that meant. But looking back over the last 2 years of my life, I got exactly what I asked for. I got a stripping of myself, a complete stripping of myself. Everything that held me to what I thought I was, the identity of who I thought I was completely stripped from me. My vanity, my self identity, all the labels that I had associated with who I thought I was, everything was just being stripped one by one. And although over the last couple years I had some of the most beautiful experiences I could have ever experienced in my entire life, I also experienced some of the most excruciating experiences of my entire life. And it was one day I was having this conversation with this woman. We were going to go visit we're going to go visit these ruins. I had, I was, before we moved, before we moved out of the country, I had this vision of these ruins, and basically there was these ruins in Belize, and it was said to. We're going to go a little deep here. It was said to be an open Sirius channel. So if anybody is familiar with astrology, Sirius is a planet, very that the Mayans and not just the Mayans, but many of these ancient ruined places all over the world, they're said to be portals. But anyways, there was these ruins in Belize, called the Caracol ruins, and they were one of 10 ruins in the world that were said to have these open portals. And I was very, very drawn to go to this portal. I don't know why, but I don't live my life anymore asking why. I just go wherever I'm being called to go, whatever that voice is. And some people might want to call that crazy or woo-woo, but that's how I live my life. I live my life in a place of surrender. So, um, I knew I needed to go to those ruins, and I knew Belize was one of those places. So it took me 3 attempts to actually finally get to those ruins. But the very first attempt going to those ruins, we were on a bus heading to the city San Ignacio, where you go see these ruins. And I was talking to my friend's girlfriend, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this has been like one of the craziest experiences I've ever experienced in my life." And just telling her some of the things that happened, and she said, "I heard that there was 2 places in the world where you're really sent to see your shadow." And for those of you who don't know what a shadow is basically your deepest, darkest side of you. And she said Belize and Bali. And it was funny because I knew I was called to both of those. Um, and I was like, "Oh my God, that makes sense." I was like, "This is exactly why I was here in Bali, because I was being so stripped of everything, especially my vanity out in Belize." And that was so hard for me. It was so hard for me to be stripped of that completely. Being in a place, being in the United States where I'm used to being able to wear makeup and being able to dress up and wear jewelry. Not that you can't do that in Belize, but it it it, it it's not when you're sweating half to death. I was having a struggle because the food wasn't healthy, so I was really swollen. I gained some weight. Um, and I just was not in. I just wasn't in like the happiest place. I wanted to open with that story for a reason. That was really the beginning of my journey of really stripping. I had grown so fast. I'd grown tremendously. I was really, really, really deep into my spiritual practice that I wasn't quite ready to share with people, um, because I felt like if I did share that side of me, that um, people really wouldn't understand. They wouldn't really understand. Um, they wouldn't understand me, right? And over the last few years before going on this trip, I had been getting lots of messages to start opening that part of myself. And I wasn't ready to share it because it was very sacred to me. My spirituality was very sacred to me. And of course, back in the day, our ancestors, women, we know this, being called a witch and being burned for being, connected intuitively. So, I really focused on being grounded, which is incredibly important. Um, and so I wasn't really quite ready to start sharing that of myself. But little did I know, of course, looking back in hindsight, what the last couple years were really here to show me. And now looking back at these last couple years, I realize it was like I had reached a place where my dreams, I had reached a cap. I had reached a plateau. I didn't think big enough. I wasn't thinking. I thought my vision was really big, um, but it wasn't big enough. How many people who are listening today can relate to playing small? And if everybody here doesn't raise their hand, then you're in denial, because we all have a full potential, and our full potential is so infinite. And but when we're thinking from our mind, we have like this type of linear thinking. that keeps us into like, well, this goal and this goal and this goal. When I achieve that, then I'm going to get this, and then I'm going to get this, and then I'm going to get this, and then I'm going to get this. And then these linear goals that we set out for. And then we wonder why, once we like achieve it, why we just don't feel quite fulfilled. And we're just kind of stuck at this cap, because we limit ourselves from thinking and creating from just a space in our mind. And I didn't realize that that's what I had done. I had no idea, because from the outside looking in, um, from the outside looking in, it looked like I had a really good life. It was like everybody would be like, "It looks like she really has her shit together." And I'm not gonna lie, I did. I did. I really did have for the first time in my life, I really felt like I had created this life that I was really happy with living. But then I realized at some point, where am I going from here? Like, could I continue living like this? Like, yeah, I mean, it's not a bad life. There's so many people on the planet who would love to have the life that I was living. There's so many people that would die to live the life that I was living. But something was missing. And what I really want to share today is what this death and rebirth means. When it's time for you to really grow into your full potential, first and foremost, I think before I go into that thought, I think once we start to go down this path of personal and spiritual growth, especially those of us who have been down this path for a long time and have done quite a bit of work on ourselves, you get disillusioned into the fact that you've made it. You think that you've made it. And I'll never, ever, ever in my life forget, this is one of the most defining moments of my life. I was on the phone, video call with a potential client. She was going from the corporate world into entrepreneurship. And she just kept on saying to me on this call, you know, I always listen to my angels. My angels are always telling me guidance. But this woman was very frustrated, like very frustrated. Her business wasn't taking off. Things weren't really moving for her. And I had mentioned, you know, free will. And I said, you do know that the universal law of free will, it takes over everything. Like, that's what makes us human, is this idea of free will. So you can sit here and talk to your angels and talk to the universe and talk to God all day long. But at the end of the day, we do have the ability to make decisions, and we have our own free will, which when we make decisions takes over everything. And she was like, she looked at me like I was batshit crazy. And I looked at her and I said, well, if you're following the guidance of your angels, and you're not really where you want to be right now, is that really the true guidance of your angels? And that's when she was like, she was so angry with me. Like, at that point, she was like so angry with me. It just was like, no, I don't even want to, I'm not even entertaining this conversation with you anymore. I hang up the phone and I just sit there and I'm like, God, what the hell was that all about? Like, what was that all about? And then this voice came down to me and said, you are human and you're human for a reason. And don't you ever go there. Basically where she was at, just kind of floating up in the clouds. Don't you ever go there. You're human for a reason. And you needed to recognize spiritual ego. And in that moment, I recognized, I made sure to make it a point that I always stayed very grounded into who I was, and to really trust myself and my decisions and the words that come out of my mouth. and when we're like kind of like floating out in space and we don't quite know the difference between our heart and our mind and our um, guidance, right? We start to experience things in our life that cause us to start listening to the heart. And the heart is a muscle, just like every other muscle in the body, right? If uh, men can definitely relate to this, of course, but you don't want to build up some muscle, right? So what happens in order to build up muscle? You must tear apart the threads of the muscle in order for it to get bigger. And as you're working out and you're tearing apart every single one of those threads of the muscle, you're in so much pain. Like you go to the gym and you're just like, oh my God, like the next couple days, you can't lift anything. Everything that touches you is so painful. It's so painful. The heart is a muscle that's no different. And we go through this path of thinking that we know where we're going, what we're doing, because you're so passionate about what it is that you're doing. You're so passionate about the mission that you're on. You're so passionate about the work that you're doing. But then for some reason, we're just stuck. And we don't know why. And we start to make all these excuses as to why we're stuck. Oh, we've got this other lesson to learn, or I've got to give away my services for free, or I've got to do this, or whatever it is. There's more practice. I'm not ready. But you stay so fixated on this one thing that you think is the right thing. It could be in any area of life. Doesn't matter. But then all these times that things are not working, and you still just don't waver off the path because you think you know what path you're supposed to be on. You think you know. So you stay on this path, and a year later goes by, and you're still in the same position. And the only difference is you just got a pile of workload that you've been doing over and over and over. But the circumstances aren't any different. If I were to look back at my life over the last couple years, I would have only done one thing different. And that one thing that I would have done different was to just stop doing anything. I didn't need to work. That whole time I was traveling over the last couple of years, I didn't need to work. I didn't need to do anything. I lost touch with my initial intention was to prepare myself for global leadership. But I allowed my human brain and my guidance to tell me to be creating. It wasn't a time for me to create. It was time for me to die. It was time for me to let go of what had served me before. But while I'm on this path of seeing through the eyes of a global citizen and preparing myself for the person I was to become, I was still trying to do things the old way that I did things before, and I was still trying to create things that I was doing before. And because of that, I wasn't able to really truly listen to my heart. Although my heart was sending me lots of messages, I wasn't listening to it. I thought I was. I tricked myself into thinking that I was doing everything from the heart, but I wasn't. Because it wasn't my time to be doing, it was my time to be silent. And because of that, I ignored a lot of signs in my life that could have helped me to really break open probably a lot sooner. But of course, I also believe everything is there for a reason. This idea of death is so important because as we do move into our full potential, if you really do feel like you are born for something bigger, that you know you have like a big contribution to make into the world, there comes a point where you must die. You cannot avoid this. And if you've been walking around and hitting your head against a wall and wrapped up in these cycles, and if you are not where you want to be right now, even though you've been doing all the work, I'm guaranteeing you right now, it's time to die. But the problem is we feel like maybe we know this, but then we grasp on so tight to like the old ways of living and thinking that maybe, just maybe, we can die and then not have to feel any pain and still do what we're doing all at the same time, which is a definition of control, which you can't do. You got to get into a place of trust and a place of surrender. You got to die. That's what death is. It's just like taking that last breath, seeing the darkness for a while, and then just knowing at some point that there is going to be a light that's going to open up for you. So for me, what happened was I was still continuing to try and do the things that the way that I was used to doing, which I was letting go of. And I was given so many messages to stop doing what I was doing before. I was given an exorbitant amount of money to be able to not worry about working and just go and die and enjoy my death. Go enjoy your retirement and your death. Go enjoy it. Don't do. Just go and experience the simplicity of life in your last days of this old life. And go do that. And then once you go do that, you're going to emerge into this beautiful woman that you set forth to become. But instead, I resisted and I held on so tight. I just held on so tight because I couldn't let go of that control. So then a decision that I was supposed to make, I say supposed to loosely, I made it, but then backed out of it. What I was in a relationship. It was time to let go of that relationship. I left the relationship, but then it was very, only for like a couple hours, talked about it, and we decided, okay, let's try this. That was like that was one of the first, that was one of the first, I don't want to say mistake. I don't want to say mistake, but I made the decision and I listened to my heart, and then I backed out and let my mind confuse me into thinking that I was thinking that it wasn't my heart. So I got back into the relationship. Thinking that, okay, we can do this. And because of that, it was like, all right, now we're going to accelerate this. Someone asked, please clarify, are you talking about physical death or the death of an old life? Well, it's death of the old life, like physical death. I don't have any control over my physical death, unless, of course, you actually do take your own life. So that's when things got real, because there was a lot of things that I wasn't, there was a lot of things that I ignored from not listening to my heart. So it was time for brick right across the head. Oh, I do wanna back up for just a second. I finally did make it to the Korakal ruins, took 3 times, and I went on top of the Korakal ruins, and I had the most amazing, like, oh my gosh, amazing meditation I've ever had in my life. Like, I disappeared. I could have been up there for, like, 40 days and not even known. I was so gone. It was, like, the most amazing, amazing experience being able to just sit there. I was like, I could not feel my body at all. It was the most amazing experience. That was what really accelerated this for me, I think. The journey itself to get to those ruins, like, I can't even describe it. Potholes like this deep in the jungle. There was people with firearms. It was right on the border of Belize and Guatemala. It was super dangerous. And I'm just sitting there, like, in like the deepest meditation, just gone, just completely gone. In that moment is when everything just kind of just came to me. And then the next stop for me was Guatemala, which is where a lot of just started coming through, like flying through. Like for me, Guatemala was one of the most intense spiritual experiences of my life, which is what led me. You need to make these decisions and get rid of some of these things that are happening in your life. But I backed out of some of them. It showed me where I needed to surrender, but I wasn't ready to let go. So then I finally make it to Bali. And what was really crazy about Bali is like, if any of you who live in Bali or visited Bali, I can't describe to you. It doesn't even. I don't care where you're at in your journey. I can't describe to you the energy in Bali. It's very unique. Everything is accelerated and slowed down. There's no time. There's no time. When I first go to Bali, everything was like so fast. Like it was like everything was happening so quickly. Like the second I get to Bali, the day one I get to Bali, I'm hired for my first speaking engagement. A speaking engagement that was almost impossible to get. Opened up just like that. I was just getting things like this left and right. I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest place I've ever been into my life. Things were happening so quick. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm never leaving this place. It was heaven. I was like, oh my gosh, like, nope, I'm planting. I'm never going back home to the States. I'm living here in Bali. This is home, whatever. And then you don't want to listen? You set forth for this mission. You said you came out on this mission to be bigger, to stop playing small, to influence millions instead of hundreds. Probably it was in the thousands at that point, right? But whatever. You set forth on this planet to do something big, and you think this is big? Here you are still playing small? Life is like, okay, I'll show you. If I didn't strip you of everything yet, let me actually strip you of things and see what is actually what you're actually in this for. What actually matters. And just like that, it felt like everything that I had worked so hard for just crumbled into ash. Tens of thousands of dollars that I had in my bank account, gone overnight. I've been asked several times, like, well, what happened to the money? I honestly have no freaking clue. I have no clue. It happened so quickly. I was in so much shock. that I don't even know what that I can't even honestly remember what happened. I just knew I had all this money, and then overnight it was gone. I knew I had this business, and then overnight it was crumbling. I knew overnight I had this relationship that I was like thought I was like really happy with, and then all of a sudden it was crumbling. I thought I had this identity, gone everything. It was just like, oh, it was like literally overnight, like everything that I knew was just crumbling. And I was just in shock. And I'm here in a foreign country and I didn't even know what was going on. I'm literally just like in shock. So what do, right? When everything around you and your whole vision of your life is just starting to crumble. Of course, you start to freak out. I started to freak out. Okay, what can I do to make more money? What can I do? We need to get a relationship counselor. We need to start connecting together. What do I need to do this in my business? What do I need to do? Like literally just trying to fix everything. Just trying to fix, fix, fix. And so as I'm trying to fix my whole life, it just makes everything worse. Think about, you're looking at your life like glass, like a mirror. And then all of a sudden, like somebody throws a rock at the mirror, and then all of a sudden, all these pieces of glass are on the ground. And you're like, oh shit. And you're trying to pick up all these pieces of glass from the ground. What happens? You're freaking bleeding to death. Everything, your hands are bloody. You can't pick up glass and glue all the pieces together. Even if I did pick up all the glass and glue them together, could I see through that mirror properly? But that's what we do in our lives because we can't let go of control. So here we are. This scary decision happens in life. Oh my God, I got to make this scary decision. Well, you know what? Let me see if I can avoid the scary decision and make a decision that might be a little bit scary, but it's also a little bit safe at the same time. And see how that works out for you. And then you end up in a position like I was, which I'm getting to a year later, an even worse position than you were before because you didn't listen. You thought you listened because, of course, it was like, oh, I'll listen. Ah, no, I'm gonna talk myself out that this isn't a mind decision. I'm gonna say it's an intuitive decision. The heart is gonna come back to you. The heart is not going to tell you. Let me just tell you right now. If the heart is speaking, it's most likely not what you want to hear. I cannot, I can, there's not very many times in my life where I can tell you the heart has told me something that I wanted to hear. But there's times where I'm like, okay, yeah, this seems great. All right. I still got a little bit of control in this. It's getting me out of my comfort zone a little bit. So I'm going to say that this was like, if I'm being guided, this is great. So I'm going to do that. That's what I did. But then I'm seeing all this chaos start to unravel over and over and over and over and over and over. And I'm convincing myself, okay, like I'm just like going through a lesson right now. What is this lesson showing me? I'm just going through a lesson right now. So then I had a little bit of a breakthrough. So That breakthroughs for another day, another conversation. But I was in the darkest. I was in such a dark place, and I had some beautiful friends who that definitely helped me out of it. But I was in a place where um, I'll touch on this for just a brief second. Where I had just started a practice spiritually, actually I'm not going to talk about that. I'll talk about this in my programs, but I'm not going to talk about this in this because it's a little too deep to have this conversation on this particular call. But I prepared 2 years to go through this program. Prepared myself 2 years to go into this. Less than 1,000 people have ever gone through this process. Basically, it's shining a light on everything. And for me, of course, I decided to go through this process. But anyways, it's a very deep process where you're really shining a light on like everything in your life, like every little speck of dust, every little speck of dust that might be on your heart. I went through that process, and I'm still only halfway through it. And every single time I have to open one of those new portals, I freak out. I'm like, I have to not I have to, but I'm at the process where I'm ready to open up the next portal, and I'm like, what am I? I'm like, I don't know. It's like I'm freaking out a little bit, not gonna lie. But I committed to it. That was a life I committed to. I committed to a life of absolute self-actualization, so I can't back out of it. So I'm taking some deep breaths before I go into the next step. I've been on that process for a year. So of course, it was a year ago. So I didn't realize exactly what, of course, that spiritual bypass, you're thinking, "Oh, it's going to be like love, light, and rainbows." It definitely was not. So because I wasn't listening, I got slapped across the face with a 2x4, and my whole world had shattered. My whole world had shattered. This mirror had shattered. I got offered this amazing opportunity to come move to the States to host and co-produce a television show. I was doing all these media events. I was getting all these magazine covers and articles and all this stuff. Like things were starting to pick up and go great again. Like everything was going like really great. Come back to the States, and then, um, you know, obviously we see the state of the world is in right now, but there was still some pieces of that mirror still left. So I would say over the last year, before Bali, like during Bali, only half of the mirror broke. Come back to the States, and then the rest of the mirror broke. The whole mirror shattered. It was time to let go of everything. My relationship, my identity, what I considered safety and security, my friends, the story of myself. There was nothing left. Nothing left. All I had left were the pieces of the mirror on the ground. But this time I knew better not to pick up the pieces. This time I knew if I tried to pick up the pieces of this mirror, it probably would have led to a physical death, honestly, because I was bleeding away too much. And I felt like I was at a place where there was nothing. And then one day I'm just sitting there and I was like, isn't that what you asked for? You asked to take off those glasses that made you see the life the way you were living before. You knew that it wasn't serving you anymore, but here you are fighting and resisting the entire time, as all we were trying to do was clean the mirror. But because you resisted so much, we had to crash the mirror so you would stop holding on to it. Do you really want to go back to that old image in the mirror? Isn't that what you were? Isn't weren't aren't you ready to grow? Why would you want to pick up those pieces? Isn't it time for a new movie? Isn't it time for a new picture? Aren't you sick and tired of seeing a fake image in the mirror? Aren't you ready to see yourself? Isn't that what you committed to? A life of self-actualization, a life of honesty, a life of truth? But here you are crying over a life and an image of a person who was just a shell of who you are? And here you are broken and bruised and bloody, trying to salvage an image that's not even really you? Oh my God. That's exactly what I set out for. I got exactly what I asked for. But because I was resisting so much and trying to control the outcome of things so much, I was so concerned and focused on the minuscule things in my life that just didn't matter. If I were to be like brutally honest with myself and everybody watching this live stream today, I was more concerned about the idea of being successful than actually being successful. I was more concerned about the image of my relationship than actually my real relationship. I was more concerned with how people perceived me than actually just being me. So, as I said, I wanted all of these things, I was still trying to hold on so people would understand me. So I wouldn't be judged. So I could fit in somehow, knowing that I don't fit in. And then finally, in that moment, I realized I'm dying. I don't belong here anymore. I must die. And so I surrendered and just let myself die and got to a place of objectivity in my life where I just was no longer concerned with, where I was no longer concerned with the images. And that's when the real work really began, when I finally surrendered. That's when the heart really started to grow. But I had to look at all those places I was resisting first. It was a brutal process. I've shared this before, I'm gonna repeat it again. There's 4 stages, or I'm sorry, 6 stages of growth. The first stage is when we go into this accumulation of knowledge. We gather up all this information. We go to every event, we read every book, everything that basically everything that we learn comes from some guru, some book, some event, something. We go through a program. We just accumulating all this knowledge to try and understand this like personal and spiritual development, whatever path you go on. It's just an accumulation of knowledge. But we convince ourselves that we're doing a lot of work. Not that we're not doing work. You got to go through that phase. You must go through that phase first, where you actually start to like, okay, my life is not working. I've got to do something. And so you go to this event or you meet somebody that says something, and then it sends you on this growth path. So you go down that path. And then you go through the second phase, and the second phase is when you start to actually realize you're like, oh, I've done everything, but my relationships really aren't changing. My income's really not changing. Nothing's really changing. I feel better about it and I can see things a little bit differently, but I'm still not really like in a place in my life. Like things are definitely like smells better, but it's just not quite there yet. So then you start to take that knowledge and then you start to practice it. You start to like actually integrate it into your life. And then after you start to integrate things into your life, then you go through a phase where you start questioning everything. And now all that information that you learned before, you've got to unlearn it. You got to unlearn it all. This is the phase that I called embodied personality. This is where, true leadership, true self-mastery is you must master all aspects of yourself, and that includes your personalities and sub-personalities. It's the phase of individuation where you realize you're connected to the whole, but you have an individual piece of the puzzle of the whole. And when you start to get to this place where you unlearn everything and you're no longer in the mind, that's when your expression starts to come out. That's when your life like starts to change. But you have to like let go in a big way to get there. And then once you get to a place of where you finally have surrendered and you don't know shit. Like you don't know anything. You're no longer going to events. You're no longer reading books. You're no longer needing like daily motivations. You realize all these things that you used to need, you don't need anymore. But then all of a sudden you're really like this wisdom is really starting to arise from you because your own voice, your own like that piece of that puzzle of the whole is really starting to come through. So the resources for that piece of the puzzle really start to come through. The mountains start to move for you. So then you get there and you don't know anything. And then there's the fourth phase. You must become bigger. You got a taste of what it feels like, but now you must become bigger. So now you've got to go back and revisit all of those beasts, all of those trials and tribulations that you faced in the beginning stages. You must face those all over again. And you face them all over again, but this time you must make friends with them. That is going to crack your heart open more than anything. This journey isn't for the faint of heart. You hear in the world right now a lot of people saying this term divine femininity, and there's like a lot of people out here who talk about the divine feminine and just being this goddess. You know what it is? Divine femininity is? called the underworld. You're not relying on intellect anymore. Your heart is cracked wide open. You step into that divine femininity by going into the underworld. So you go there willingly, fully, wholeheartedly, and you commit to a life of 3 things. Your life is literally now comprised of only 3 things when you come out of that. The underworld is death. You face death. You face death of all the people that hurt you. You face death of all the old cords. You face death of your old story. You face death of, maybe it might be your family, of your identity. You face death of everything. But you must make friends with it. So there's that phase. There's the death, which is 5. Finally, you just surrender to it. Because there's times where you're just like, I want to get the hell out of here. And then you surrender. And these things are still coming at you, but there's no charge anymore. You're finally in a place of neutrality. You've come into a place of acceptance of the death. So these things are still coming at you, but you're no longer triggered by it. You're opening up that womb space. It's like a baby, right? Like you got your egg and you got your sperm, they come together, there's this burst of light, right? But then this baby starts to formulate, and then all of a sudden we don't see what's going on except like under ultrasound, but then all of a sudden this baby just like pops out and you got this baby. But this baby, as it's growing, it's in this sac. And in this sac, it's fluid. And the baby's floating around in this fluid. So in this phase of death, you're just sitting there laying in this fluid. And you're just laying there, fluid, in neutrality. Life is coming at you, but you're not triggered by it. Demons are coming at you, but you're not triggered by it. You finally just become this witness. You're not even convincing yourself that you're over with it. You're just like, I see you. You're not even trying to understand it anymore. There's no understanding of it. Because you know if you try and understand it, yes, you ain't gonna understand it. So you're just sitting there as a witness, just looking around as these stones are being cast. And you're just sitting there doing nothing. And you feel like you have these urges inside of you. I think this will be my topic for next week, or the three ways of rebirth, the life of rebirth, how you live after rebirth. But you're just sitting here. That's interesting. And you're not planning anything. You're just sitting here. And things are just because that's the way of the feminine, that's the way of the woman. It's just coming to you. You're not out seeking anything, you're just here. And you just let yourself be. And then when you realize you've come full circle, and you're finally just like seeing green is so bright, breath is so cool. There's no difference between the ocean and a bathtub. You're just being. You're just neutral. And once you can just sit in that place for a little while of just being absolutely fluid, just being, and then you realize, you don't realize, it just happens, that sack of neutrality doesn't serve you anymore, that you've outgrown it. Pop. You're ready to come out the other end. And it almost seems like we forget that part. The part of just being fluid, of doing nothing, of having no urges, but realizing that urges are just fallacies. I'm gonna go into deep into that next Tuesday. If you have an urge to do something, that's your mind. That's not your heart. Guaranteed. Because feminine is patience. Urges are literally the opposite of patience. So if you wake up any moment and you're like, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, that's your mind and your, I really don't like that word ego, but it's a distraction. The urges are distractions, keeping you from being patient, keeping you from a life of simplicity. When a baby is ready to be born, the baby is ready to be born. And it's sad because in our society, we see doctors scheduling C-sections for no reason. There's no complications in the pregnancy. Oh, what day do you want to have this baby? Well, I want to go on vacation by this date, and so I really need to have this baby by this time. So I'm going to control the pregnancy and the birth of my child. So let's just schedule the pregnancy this day because it's convenient. Oh my God. And we wonder why our planet is so fucked up. We don't even allow childbirth to be natural anymore. Doctors just naturally we take away the pain by giving you an epidural, by popping the water sac for you, inducing birth, scheduling C-sections, killing any bit of femininity that we have. And we wonder why the world is in the state that it is in today. And we allow it. We even have to control life. The most natural, giving birth, the most natural thing on the planet. We have to control even that. But it should be when the baby is ready, the baby is ready. And then just like that, it's out. And you got rebirth. It wasn't the most beautiful, it didn't look pretty. It didn't feel pretty. But life was born. And it's the same thing whether it's physical or whether it's spiritual. And now we have rebirth. Ladies, we have the opportunity right now to be born again as women. To step up into this world and be a mother for this planet. The world needs a mother. This is not the time right now to be in a place of doing. This is a time right now to reshape and restructure and to mold, to step into that power, to open up that womb space, to be that strong, powerful force that we were all born to be. But in order to do that, we got to replace the glass with a mirror that's more beautiful than the one before. How naive of me to think that I even wanted that mirror back in the first place, but I hurt myself so much in the process trying to put that life back together. With all the scars, all the blood, sweat, and tears, to show the resistance, trying to hold on to a life I didn't want anymore anyways. We all have the ability to create. And in the space of creativity and creation and inspiration is where the beauty and magic really occur in this world. And it's time for us to get back to that space. It's time to shatter a mirror. And those of you who can relate to some of the things that I was saying today, maybe it's time to actually take a mirror and go freaking shatter it. Give up those superstitions of, oh my God, if you shatter a mirror, it's 7 years of bad luck. No, it's not. It's saying, it's declaring to the world, look, I'm done. I'm not living this life no more that doesn't serve me. I'm not looking at that photo any longer. I'm not looking at that picture anymore. That's why I went and got a new hairdo, because I was looking at myself and I was like, oh my God, that's how I looked 5 years ago. Oh God. I was playing with my psyche. I was like, no, I can't do that. I gotta look different. So I got I got hair that's like a different color than I've done before. I was like, I gotta look different. It's time to let go. It's time. I don't care where you're at in your journey, or if you think that, oh, I know all this, I've done whatever. No, if you're not where you want to be, there's a level that you must go deeper. It's time to go deeper. It's time. This right now is the time for mission realignment. It's not necessarily a time of doing, it's a time for mission realignment. How can we align ourselves more with our mission, what we're here to do? Those who want to be out there right now, hoorah, let's do, you're missing the point. The world is not ready yet for that really strong, powerful, divine femininity. It's not ready for it yet. It's preparing for it. Right now, the masculine is in so much resistance right now. I mean, look at the world, right? Like, especially in America. Oh my God. It's like literally if the most extreme side of toxic masculinity, not so, like just like barfed all over the world. Like literally, let's try and fix everything through structure and rules and systems. And let's not change anything. Let's just make sure we hold on to all values and strip everybody of rights. It's disgusting. It's not the time right now to be out there hoorahing for change, because the world is too divided and there's too much fear that people, no matter what, it won't penetrate. The feminine is patience. We must be strategic in going forward. And right now is not the time. Right now is the time to sculpt, shape, and be really strong. So then when you are in a place of being really strong in your truth, and it is time to get out into the world and spread a new message, you're able to influence from the heart and not from here in the mind. The world cannot take any more intellect. We're done with it. We need people who are coming purely from here, not from some false sense of intuition. Not from the gut, not from the mind. It's the connection here. The heart will open and it'll control the mind, and our body is going to react and tell us how to move and lead forward. The body will tell us where to go. That's the feminine. Boom. But it won't happen if we don't unlock this space, if we don't make room in our chest. If we don't have a really strong spine, if we're not breathing fully, we cannot lead. That's the feminine. I'm Mandolin Moses. I'm really excited about where the future is headed. I know right now it seems like such a scary place for a lot of people, but the world is ready for us women to come up and lead in a big, powerful way, in a way that is much deeper than we know or think. And it's about us becoming embodied and really strong in all areas, because when women step up in that space, it is just so powerful. We have a group that we're going to be starting on Wednesdays called Wisdom, Wine, and Wealth, Wednesdays for women. It's a free group, or the first time is free. So if you want to join that group, just say I'm in. I'll send you a link. Invite a friend if you like. We're going to be moving forward with this group. It's going to be an invite only. And it's going to be for women who are really ready to lead this new world. And so we're going to be starting that tomorrow. So if you are a woman who wants to be invited to see what that group looks like, just say I'm in, or send me a private message and I'll send you the link. And then tomorrow will be an introduction of what that looks like. But like I said, this is not the time to be out doing a lot of heavy doing. This is a time to sculpt and see where your heart needs to open. It's time for that heart to just like, every time I say that, I just see this heart, this image of this heart just stretch. And the chest just becomes so big. and so beautiful, like and then I see, like, as when the world is ready, I just see, like, this march of women in the world, and it's like, "Oh my god, where do these women come from? Oh my gosh." And it's like all of a sudden it's like this big, like this group of women we just like unleashed out into the world. Like it just like brings me such joy to think about that moment. Oh, I just cannot wait for that moment because the world won't even know what hit them because we've just been sculpting, getting so strong, letting people freaking lose their mind right now because we're patient. We're patient. We're not sitting here, oh my God, but the children, oh my gosh, but the war. We're not doing that. We're trusting that the world right now is doing what it needs to do to recalibrate and giving us the time that we need to get strong so we can go out and influence the world with all these without all these silly rules and structures and systems. It's a joke. Nothing even makes any kind of sense. But you know what, men? If you want to hold on and resist, go right on ahead because we will crush you. Make all these rules. We're going to tear them down anyways because we're so strong. We're so strong. We took this time to witness. We took this time to be strong. We took this time to clear out all of the junk that might be here that are preventing us from serving at the highest capacity possible. And the world will not know what hit it. We must be patient. We must be patient. And I'm excited to be a part of it. Again, my name is Mandela Moses. If you want to be part of that group, let me know. I'm going to send you the information. If you have any friends that you know that might be interested in that group, let me know. We are moving, like I said, what we're moving into is it's not public like this. So you'll get more information. So just let me know if you're in. And tomorrow will be the first time we'll be introducing exactly what this looks like and start growing a group of women who are ready to sculpt themselves to become leaders of a new nation, a new world. It's time to tear down these structures. No more boxes, no more diminishing, no more any of this. It's time to really step truly into our power. No more restrictions. I'm proud to say I'm not really of this world. I'm proud to say I sit on a star somewhere in the sky and I look down and I'm just witnessing what's going on right now. And when the world is ready, I'll jump off that star. But until then, I know what I'm here to do. I'm here to be a witness and be patient. So I want to thank all of you here who spent this time with me today. I really appreciate all of you. And I look forward to seeing some of you on the call tomorrow. And thank you. Thank you so much. Till next time.